My name is Dylan Potter, and today I'll be presenting a review of Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel. Now, Guns, Germs, and Steel was written in 1997, and it won a Pulitzer Prize in 1998 for a general nonfiction. It was written by Dr. Jared Diamond, who is a doctor of geography, and he's also studied many other sciences, including evolutionary biology, ecology, history, anthropology, and so forth. Diamond researches the major question of why did world history play out the way that it did? Mainly meaning why did Eurasia conquer most of the world? And this was sparked by the question from a New Guinea politician named Yali. The question was, quote, why is it that you white people developed so much cargo and brought it to New Guinea, but we black people had little to no cargo of our own? Now, Diamond spends most of the book answering this question using different historical research methods and speculation. Why did I choose this? Because this has always been kind of a personal interest of mine. I'm not actually in a science or environmental major. I'm actually an English major. However, the subject's been super fun. I'd like to travel the country and visit different environmental parks and settings. This is San Rafael in Utah. This book in particular was recommended to me by a history professor at one point, and so when I saw it in this class, I just had to take it and read it. I'm doing a particular section number 4, the world in 5 chapters, and it stuck out because I don't have a lot of knowledge in this. Again, this isn't my major. I'm taking this class for fun, so I figured a general overview of the world would be kind of a fun feature for me. So, book overview. It is a historical scope of the world and its cultures, a broad overlook of why Eurasia colonial dominance happened. It explains why some of the cultures advanced or didn't advance, and we'll cover that in a second because that's very a subjective view. It counters the racial supremacy. There's a very unfortunate theory that Eurasia conquered the world because they developed faster because they are a better race, meaning Caucasian. That is not quite the case. And it also incorporates geographical luck in the perspective, which is Diamond's personal theory, and has been largely accepted by scholarly communities. Geographical luck is basically saying, hey, you were born in a nation that had plants that were easy to domesticate, in a climate that was friendly, in a place where metals were easy to access, and so forth, to the point where you gained an advantage based on the landscape that your culture developed in. So again, I'm doing part 4, around the world in 5 chapters. These 5 chapters focus on places that aren't mentioned very often, which is another reason I chose it. New Guinea and Australia, the Austronesian Expanse, East Asia, mainly focusing on China, comparison of Eurasia and Americas, and Africa. So there's obviously a lot of information to cover in this chapter, so I'm going to summarize it the best I can, or in this part, in these chapters, I'm going to summarize it the best that I can. So Diamond uses a lot of evidence. He uses a lot of specific dates and figures. However, he also uses a lot of broad circumstances and speculation. It's history, you kind of have to, but he uses very thorough techniques of examination to get to those points. For example, he talks a lot about societal advancements and societal needs. Now, I mentioned earlier societal advancements is subjective, and the reason behind that is because there's 3 major societies. There's nomadic or hunter-gatherer, which is deemed the most basic. The second is agrarian, or agriculture. Basically, you grow and you farm and you domesticate plants or animals or both. And finally, industrial. And the main idea is that if you have an agrarian society, you have time and surplus of food, which lets your population grow. Population growth allows for inventions and new ideas and new labor, which leads to an industrial society. Because of this, we have the perspective that industrial society is a peak culture. However, Diamond goes through and explains that societal needs don't always lead to industrialization. Because of that, he mainly focuses on how different societal needs, again based on geographical locations, determine the development of cultures. For example, arrow and spearheads were found in Australia. They were invented, however they were not primarily used, meaning they never really developed a lot of fighting or hunting technology because they didn't need them. Same thing with farming. There's really no need to farm a lot. Australia is a very desolate place, a lot of droughts, and he shows charts showing the population growth and decline during droughts that last for years. And so instead of going into an agrarian-based society, they remained hunter-gatherer, and use something called fire stick farming, which is where they basically control what wild plants grow, and then they light them on fire, which scares animals out, and then they can hunt using that method. So they still had advancements, they still had technology. However, these advancements and technologies were not the same as we see in Greek and Roman cultures. He uses a lot of specific dates and figures, charts and maps, including page 415, which we will review in a second, which explains China's wholeness and pros and cons of said wholeness. And so, again, I apologize, it's kind of hard to see on here. Please click into the presentation slides and you can see it in better detail. But basically, here is Europe, and you can see a lot of different coastlines, a lot of broken and shattered landscapes in comparison to China, which is one very large whole area. It obviously goes into Korea too. And because of this, it was very easy for China to become whole, very easy for it to become united, and it was also very difficult for any opposition to kind of grow in power. Again, China did break apart a couple times, but for the most part, it was a very whole society as opposed to Europe, which, as we know, has a very complicated and warring history based on all of these different parts, and he attributes that largely to geographic area. The pro of this is that China developed a very large culture and a very solid foundation of history. The con is that because there is little to no competition, China didn't have to rush to develop technologies. Whereas in Europe, if your neighbor starts using a better weapon than you, you're going to have to adapt and use that weapon as well, or you'll be cut out. So it's kind of a natural selection sort of thing. It worked against China in that instance. This other one is a map of the Austronesian Expanse. And again, here he uses figures and dates of historical findings to show their expanse and how they travel the world and our understanding of it. Of course, this could be wrong because, again, it's historical speculation of thousands of years ago. However, it's the best that we have, and it's the most thorough examination that we have. Again, you can go into this if you'd like to read more about it. So, final piece of evidence that he uses is, again, a very general theory. But if you look at Europe and Eurasia, it's very horizontal, meaning that the growing zones, domestication of animals and livestock, and even people can migrate horizontally with little to no risk of different diseases happening or slowing your progress. Whereas if you look at other continents, such as Africa or the Americas, it's very vertical. And because of that, the growing zones and climate changes very difficultly, and diseases are prone to happen. For example, when colonizers first came to North America and they tried moving Native American slaves down to the southern aspect of the United States, natives often caught diseases that they weren't used to and died because they weren't used to the climates. Whereas in Eurasia, you didn't have that problem because, again, it is largely horizontal. So evidence like that. The evaluation of that is that sometimes it's a little too generalized, and he's painting with a very broad brush. So in theory, they could be right. In theory, there could be aspects that fall between the cracks and you miss. Overall, it's a very thorough aspect, and it's created a lot of discourse. A lot of critics target him for ignoring human agency. And human agency is basically the human impacts on human growth and development. For example, you can be in the same area as someone else and have the same geographical luck that they have. However, your religion and your culture can develop different populations or different styles of living, which can contribute to your success or failure as a society. He even answers critics and explains, like, yes, that can happen. However, at the same time, you have to realize if you live in Iceland versus living in Madagascar, you're obviously going to dress and eat differently, and that can definitely change or benefit your society depending how you look at it. Overall, it's very effective work. Here's a picture of Jared Diamond winning the Pulitzer Prize. It's very accepted by scholars, but it's also very criticized for being too general, which truthfully I believe is a benefit, because when you're criticized, you create discourse, and discourse creates scientific examination. Scientific examination finds the truth. So Jared Diamond's work, even though it hasn't been refuted yet, it is creating a lot of turmoil, or it has created a lot of turmoil. It was released a while ago. And it's been very beneficial to the scientific community. In summary, very plausible theories, very well put in terms of a large book. He's able to fit in all kinds of different cultures and societies into this general overview of a theory, and it works effectively. I mean, I was fully convinced at the end of it. Again, I was a little hesitant on the human agency aspect. I think maybe there was some parts that were missed there. However, again, I don't really know, and that's why I said it's very understandable by experts and average civilians or scholars. I don't know a lot about the subject. However, he explains it very thoroughly, explains reasons that it could be plausible, and both experts and layman terms, they all agree that it's a very well put article. It's also very recommendable. Again, it was recommended to me, and I recommend it to anyone who has an interest in it. Yes, so thank you. Again, my name is Dylan Potter, and this was a review of Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel, and here's a citation of the book.